Silence is not weakness, it's authority. Have you noticed this pattern? The more you explain yourself, the more people interrupt you. The more you defend your position, the less seriously you're taken. And eventually, you start to feel it. Not loud disrespect, but subtle disrespect. Dismissive tones, side comments, people pushing your boundaries just a little further each time. Here's the brutal truth most people never learn. Disrespect doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how much access you give to your reactions. We live in a culture that teaches you to respond fast, to explain, to clarify, to correct, to make sure everyone understands your side. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Real authority isn't built by talking more. It's built by knowing when not to talk at all. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most powerful thoughts in private, not to convince others, but to discipline his own mind. Epictetus warned that when you feel the urge to react, that's exactly the moment you're being tested, because the person who controls the reaction controls the frame. In this video, you'll learn 6 silent Stoic moves, not tricks, not manipulation, and not passive aggression. These are disciplined responses used by people who are calm, grounded, and impossible to intimidate. They won't help you win arguments. They'll do something far more powerful. They'll make people adjust their behavior around you. Not because they fear you, but because they sense boundaries they can't cross. If you've ever felt talked over, underestimated, or subtly disrespected, stay with me. By the end of this video, you won't need sharper words. You'll need fewer of them. Before we begin, leave this in the comments. Not for me, but for yourself. Silence is my authority. Let's begin. Silent Stoic. Move number 1. 1. Withdraw. Attention strategically. Here's something most people don't realize until it's too late. Disrespect needs fuel, and that fuel is your attention. Every sarcastic comment, every subtle jab, every boundary push disguised as a joke. None of it works unless you react. The moment you explain yourself, defend your tone, or try to prove your point, you've already paid the price. Because attention is not neutral. Attention is currency. And when you give it freely to disrespect, you teach people exactly how to treat you. Now let's be clear, this isn't about ghosting or being passive. This isn't about shutting down or running away. Stoic withdrawal is strategic, not emotional. It's the moment you recognize, this interaction no longer deserves my energy. And you act accordingly. Think about where disrespect usually happens. At work, someone undermines you in a meeting. In relationships, someone provokes you just enough to get a reaction. Socially, someone tests you with sarcasm, tone, or dismissiveness. In all these cases, the goal is the same, to pull you out of your center. Because once you're reacting, they're leading. Stoicism teaches a brutal but freeing truth. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to respond to every provocation, and you certainly don't have to perform for people who've already decided not to respect you. When you withdraw attention, something powerful happens. The dynamic changes. They expect resistance. They expect emotion. They expect explanation. Instead, they get nothing. No extra words, no emotional tone, no visible irritation, just a calm shift of energy away from them. And here's what most people get wrong. They think silence is weakness. But silence, when chosen, not forced, is dominance. Because you're not removing yourself, you're removing access. Access to your emotions, access to your reactions, access to your internal state. Let me give you a real-world example. Someone makes a dismissive comment in a meeting. Old pattern. You jump in. Clarify, defend, justify. Stoic move. You stop contributing to that thread. You finish your work. You speak when necessary. You don't re-engage emotionally. No announcement, no visible shift, just a withdrawal of fuel. And what happens next is predictable. At first, they feel powerful, then confused, then uncertain. Because disrespect without reaction doesn't land. It hangs in the air, awkward, exposed, unsupported. But here's the critical warning. Withdrawing attention only works if it's clean. Not silent, but angry. Not quiet while replaying the moment in your head. Not detached on the outside, but reactive inside. Stoicism is internal discipline first. So use this 3-step protocol. Step 1, stop feeding the interaction. No explanations, no emotional follow-ups. Step 2, neutralize your inner commentary. No mental arguments, no imaginary speeches. Step 3, redirect attention inward to what you control. Your posture, your tone, your next deliberate action. This is how you reclaim authority. Not by winning the moment, but by refusing to invest in moments that cost you self-respect. Remember this line, burn it in. What you stop feeding eventually starves. Disrespect dies when it can't access you, and when people realize they don't get a reaction for free anymore. They adjust, not because you demanded it, but because your silence changed the rules. Silent Stoic Move No. 2. 2. Pause. Longer than socially comfortable. Most people think power comes from having the right words ready. Stoics know something deeper. Power comes from not being rushed into reacting. In modern conversations, speed is mistaken for confidence. Quick replies, instant comebacks, fast explanations. But speed doesn't create authority. Control does. And nothing disrupts a disrespectful dynamic faster than a pause that feels uncomfortable. Here's what happens in real life. Someone challenges you publicly, uses a sharp tone, throws a subtle insult, pushes a boundary just enough to see if you'll flinch. They're not waiting for your answer. They're waiting for your reaction. Because reactions reveal hierarchy. The person who reacts quickly is usually the one being led. The person who takes their time sets the frame. Stoicism teaches restraint at the exact moment your ego wants speed. Epictetus warned that when you're provoked, you're being invited to abandon your own discipline. The pause is how you decline that invitation. Let's be clear about something important. This pause is not hesitation, it's not confusion, and it's definitely not fear. It's deliberate stillness. A few seconds where you don't rush to explain. You don't rush to defend. You don't rush to prove anything. You let the moment breathe. And here's why it works psychologically. Human beings are deeply uncomfortable with silence, especially after they've made a provocative move. They expect pushback. They expect emotion. They expect a signal that they've landed the hit. When none comes, the pressure reverses. Now they're the one exposed. Now they're the one wondering if they went too far. Now they're the one filling the silence in their head. That's power shifting hands. Let's put this into a concrete situation. Imagine someone makes a dismissive remark in a meeting. Old pattern? You jump in immediately. Clarify. Justify. Protect your image. Stoic move? You pause. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Just long enough to break the rhythm. You look at them. You breathe once. You let the silence stretch slightly beyond what feels normal. 3 seconds. 4 seconds, sometimes 5. And only then, if you choose to speak, you respond calmly, briefly, or not at all. That pause does 3 things at once. First, it signals self-control. Second, it denies them emotional feedback. Third, it establishes that you move on your time, not theirs. Now, there's a mistake people make here. They pause, but inside, they're boiling, rehearsing arguments, planning the perfect comeback. That's not stoic. That's just delayed reaction. Stoicism is about governing the inner state, not just managing appearances. So use this internal framework during the pause. Step 1. Notice the urge to react. That surge of heat, that's your ego asking for control. Step 2. Name it silently. This is irritation. This is the need to defend. Naming creates distance. Step 3. Choose restraint on purpose. Not because you're weak, but because you're disciplined. Remember, the calmest person in the room is usually the one with the most leverage. This is why seasoned leaders speak slowly, why confident individuals don't rush their words, why authority often arrives wrapped in silence. Here's the line to remember. The pause is where power re-enters the body. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you train others to slow down around you, to choose their words more carefully, to think twice before testing you again. Not because you threatened them, but because your stillness reset the rules, and once people feel that shift, they don't push as hard next time. Silent Stoic. Move. Number 3. 3. Reduce verbal output. Increase weight. Most people lose respect the same way, not by saying something wrong, but by saying too much. They explain, they justify, they add context no one asked for. They speak again, just to be sure they were understood. And with every extra sentence, their authority leaks out. Stoicism teaches a hard discipline. If you have to over-explain, you've already lost the frame. Because power doesn't speak in paragraphs. Power speaks in precision. Think about how confident people talk. They don't rush. They don't stack reasons. They don't try to convince everyone in the room. They state, they pause, they move on. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. The problem is, most people talk to be liked, not to be respected. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being judged. They fear silence after they speak. So they keep talking, trying to fill the space, trying to secure agreement. But silence after your words is not danger. Silence is gravity. It forces others to sit with what you said. Here's the Stoic reframe. You don't speak to manage reactions. You speak to express position. Everything else is noise. Let's break this down practically. When someone disrespects you verbally, the instinct is to defend your stance. You explain your intention. You justify your choice. You clarify your tone. That turns the conversation into a trial, and you into the defendant. Stoicism rejects that frame entirely. Instead, you reduce your verbal output. Shorter sentences, neutral tone, no emotional garnish. Not because you lack intelligence, but because you don't need to display it. Here's what that looks like in real life. Instead of, I didn't mean it that way, what I was trying to say was, you say, that's not accurate. Instead of, let me explain why I think this is important. You say, I disagree. Instead of, I've already done a lot and I feel like... You say, that won't work for me. Then you stop. No follow-up justification. No nervous laughter. No over-explaining. And yes, at first, this feels uncomfortable. Because your ego wants reassurance. It wants approval. It wants to be understood immediately. But Stoicism trains you to tolerate that discomfort. Why? Because the moment you stop explaining, people start listening differently. Not necessarily agreeing, but recalibrating. They sense boundaries. They sense certainty. They sense weight. Now, an important distinction. This is not about being cold or robotic. It's not about sounding dismissive. Tone still matters. Your voice stays calm. Your posture stays open. Your presence stays grounded. You're not shutting down. You're tightening signal to noise. Most disrespectful people rely on one thing: your willingness to keep talking. Once they realize every extra word costs you nothing, they stop pushing for more. Here's the Stoic inner rule to practice. Before you speak, ask, is this sentence adding weight or just reducing tension? If it's just reducing tension, don't say it. Let the tension exist. Because tension reveals who actually has authority. And remember this line, it's crucial. Authority speaks in sentences. Insecurity speaks in paragraphs. When you speak less, you force others to meet you where you stand, not where they want to pull you. And that shift, quiet, subtle, undeniable, is when respect begins to form. Silent Stoic. Move number 4. 4. Return to normal faster than expected. Here's where most people lose the advantage, even after doing everything right. They stayed calm. They didn't react. They spoke briefly, with control, and then they change afterward. They become colder, more distant, sharper in tone, or visibly affected. And without realizing it, they send the wrong message. You got to me. Disrespectful people are not always looking for confrontation. Often, they're looking for impact. They want to know, did this land? Did this shake you? Did this change you? Stoicism understands something crucial. If someone can alter your emotional baseline, they have leverage. So the move is not just staying calm in the moment. The real move is this. You return to normal faster than they expect. No grudge, no mood shift, no silent punishment, no emotional residue, just stability. This is deeply unsettling to people who test boundaries, because they're waiting for signs. They're watching your tone the next day, your energy in the next interaction, your willingness to engage. And when nothing changes, they don't get confirmation. Let's look at a real example. Someone makes a subtle dig at you. You don't react. You pause. You respond briefly, or not at all. The next day, you greet them normally. You speak evenly. You don't reference the moment. You don't avoid them. You don't lean in either. You're neutral, grounded, unmoved. That neutrality does something powerful. It creates ambiguity. They don't know if they crossed a line, if you noticed, if you're unaffected, or if you've already adjusted your internal boundaries. That uncertainty forces self-correction. Because people push harder when they sense emotion. They pull back when they sense control. Now, let's address a common misunderstanding. Returning to normal does not mean tolerating repeated disrespect. It means you don't bleed emotion into the environment. Boundaries still exist. Consequences still happen. But they happen quietly, without emotional announcement. Stoicism is not about being nice. It's about being unshakable. Here's the psychological principle at work. Disrespect is often reinforced by feedback. Anger feeds it. Defensiveness feeds it. Withdrawal with resentment feeds it. But emotional neutrality, that starves it. The other person doesn't get the payoff. No guilt, no drama, no sense of victory. Just a calm wall they can't read. And most people back away from what they can't read. Now, here's the internal discipline required. You must genuinely let go, not suppress, not bottle it up, not pretend. Stoicism teaches internal resolution, not emotional hoarding. So use this internal reset. After the interaction, ask yourself, what part of this was actually under my control? Then answer honestly. Your reaction, your behavior, your standards, that's it. Once you've aligned with that truth, there's nothing left to carry. And that's why you can return to normal. Not because you forgot, but because you processed it fully. Here's the line to remember. This one matters. Emotional stability confuses people who rely on disruption. When you don't change, they have nothing to grab onto. And when there's nothing to grab, respect quietly enters the room. Silent Stoic, move number 5. 5. Enforce boundaries without announcing them. Most people think
We suffer
boundaries
more
are something
often
you
in
say.
imagination than in reality.
Stoics know boundaries are
True
something you
tranquility
do.
is found not in
And
the
this
absence
is where
of
many lose respect without realizing it. They declare boundaries loudly. They warn. They explain why something is unacceptable. But then, they change nothing. And that contradiction teaches people one thing: your boundaries are negotiable. Stoicism rejects that completely. A Stoic doesn't argue about boundaries. A Stoic removes access, quietly, consistently, without emotional charge. Because the strongest boundaries are not spoken, they're felt. Let's be very clear. Announcing boundaries invites negotiation. Enforcing boundaries ends discussion. When you say, "Please don't speak to me that way," you're still engaging. When you change your behavior instead, you change the dynamic. This is where real authority forms. Consider how disrespect usually escalates. Someone pushes a small line. You let it slide. They push again. You finally react, emotionally. Stoic approach? You don't wait for escalation. You respond at the access level. Here's what that looks like in real life. Someone speaks to you dismissively. You don't confront them. You don't explain why it bothered you. You simply stop volunteering information, reduce responsiveness, remove priority, access, shift your energy elsewhere. No drama, no announcement, just a clear adjustment. And here's the key insight. People learn boundaries faster from consequences than from conversations. When someone notices, you're no longer as available. Their words no longer get engagement. Their presence no longer has influence. They feel the boundary without hearing it. That's Stoic enforcement. Now, let's address a common mistake. People say, "I don't want to be rude. I don't want conflict. I don't want to seem cold." Stoicism answers this simply. You're not responsible for how others interpret your self-respect. Being clear is not being cruel. Being firm is not being hostile. And being silent is not being weak. Another mistake is inconsistency. Enforced boundaries only work when they're predictable. If you withdraw access one day, then re-engage fully the next out of guilt or habit, you erase the lesson. Stoic boundaries are boring in the best way. Same response, same distance, same calm. No emotional spikes. And this consistency does something powerful. It trains people how to approach you, not through fear, but through clarity. Let's ground this in a simple rule. If a behavior reduces your self-respect, reduce the access associated with it. That's it. No speeches. No ultimatums. No emotional processing out loud. Just alignment between your values and your actions. Here's the sentence to remember. This one matters. Boundaries spoken are negotiable. Boundaries enforced are final. When people realize you don't chase, you don't argue, you don't explain your standards, they stop testing, not because they suddenly like you more, but because they understand the cost. And once the cost is clear, disrespect becomes inefficient. Silent Stoic Move. Number 6. 6. Detach without announcement. This is the move most people resist, not because it's difficult to understand, but because it requires the highest level of self-respect. Detachment without announcement. No explanation, no final message, no dramatic exit, no demand to be understood, just disengagement. Stoicism teaches a truth that cuts against modern instincts. You don't need closure to be free. You need discipline. Most people stay trapped in disrespectful dynamics because they want one last thing: to be heard, to be validated, to make sure the other person gets it. But the need to be understood keeps you emotionally available. And emotional availability is access. Stoics don't negotiate for peace. They choose it. Detachment is not punishment, it's alignment. You stop showing up where your presence is not respected. You stop investing where your standards are ignored. You stop explaining choices that already make sense to you. And you do it quietly, because announcements invite resistance. When you say, "I'm done. I deserve better," you cross the line. You reopen the door. To arguments, to manipulation, to last-minute apologies that change nothing. Stoic detachment closes the door without slamming it. You simply don't return. Let's be very precise here. Detachment is not disappearing emotionally while staying physically present. That creates confusion and resentment. Detachment is restructuring access. You reduce interaction, you reduce responsiveness, you reduce availability. Not abruptly, not angrily, consistently, and consistency is what makes this final. Here's what this looks like in real life. You stop initiating contact, you stop checking for reactions, you stop monitoring their behavior, you stop waiting for signals. Your energy goes elsewhere, to your work, your health, your discipline, your inner order. And over time, something happens. The other person realizes there is no stage left, no audience, no leverage, no emotional hook. That realization is far more powerful than any speech. Now, this move requires one internal decision. You must accept that they may never understand. They may misinterpret your silence. They may create their own narrative. They may blame you. Stoicism prepares you for this. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that other people's judgments were not his responsibility. Your responsibility is alignment with your values, not correcting every false story. Here's the internal rule that makes detachment clean. If explaining myself doesn't restore dignity, I don't owe it. Once you internalize that, detachment becomes calm, not bitter, not dramatic, not reactive, just finished. And here's the paradox. When you detach without announcement, people feel it more deeply. Because there's no closure to argue with, no words to twist, no emotion to exploit, only absence. And absence forces reflection, not always growth, but always awareness. Remember this line. It's the final lock. You don't leave with a speech, you leave with consistency. Once your behavior no longer aligns with disrespect, the chapter ends, whether they agree or not. That is Stoic authority at its highest level. Not loud, not vengeful, not performative, just unmovable. Stoic integration, look how the 6 silent moves work as one system. If you look closely, these 6 moves aren't separate tactics. They're one system. A system built on a single Stoic principle. You control access to your inner state. Everything else adjusts around that. Let's connect the dots. When you withdraw attention, you stop feeding disrespect. When you pause longer than expected, you reclaim the rhythm of the interaction. When you reduce your words, you increase their weight. When you return to normal, you deny emotional leverage. When you enforce boundaries silently, you teach standards through action. And when you detach without announcement, you end the game entirely. None of these moves require aggression. None require dominance displays. None require winning. That's the point. Stoicism is not about overpowering people. It's about becoming ungovernable from the inside. Most people lose respect because their emotions are easy to access, easy to trigger, easy to read, easy to pull. Stoics do the opposite. They narrow access. They don't advertise their standards. They embody them. And over time, something subtle happens. People begin to self-correct around you. They choose words more carefully. They test less often. They respect boundaries they were never warned about. Not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior made disrespect ineffective. That's the deepest Stoic lesson here. You don't train people with words. You train them with consistency. And consistency only comes from inner order. This is why Marcus Aurelius didn't preach in public. He practiced in private. Because Stoicism is not a performance, it's a posture. A posture that says, I decide what reaches me, I decide what moves me, and I don't surrender that power lightly. Once you live from that posture, respect becomes a side effect, not a goal. Silence as a way of being. Let's bring this home. These 6 silent Stoic moves are not about becoming cold. They're about becoming clear. Clear about your standards, clear about your energy, clear about what you tolerate and what you quietly walk away from. Stoicism doesn't promise you an easier life. It promises you a steadier one. One where disrespect doesn't derail you, where provocation doesn't hook you, where silence becomes a tool, not a weakness. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You don't need sharper words, you need fewer reactions. For the next 7 days, try this. Pick one silent move. Just one. Apply it consistently, without explaining, without announcing, without looking for immediate results. And observe what changes. Not in them, but in you. Because the moment you stop leaking emotional energy, your presence changes, and when your presence changes, so does the room. If this video helped you see silence differently, support the channel by liking and subscribing. And leave this in the comments, not as a quote, but as a commitment. Silence is my strength. Until next time. Stand firm, stay disciplined, and protect your inner order.